The suitcase had been sitting open on our living room couch for almost an hour, but I still refused to believe it was real. Sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the family photos that covered the walls, photos of vacations, birthdays, lazy Sunday breakfasts, and quiet moments that once convinced me nothing in the world could break us apart. Then she finally looked up from folding another sweater, her eyes already glistening with tears, and quietly admitted the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. Her family had forced her to leave me. I wanted to believe her, but heartbreak has a cruel way of making every explanation sound like another goodbye. Before we begin, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, and second chances still have a place in this world, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach more people who may need them. My name is Garrick Holden, and until that afternoon, I believed my marriage had been ordinary in the best possible way. We were never rich. We never owned a mansion or drove expensive cars. We simply built a peaceful life together inside a modest home where every wall carried memories we created ourselves. My wife, Mireya, had always loved filling empty spaces with family photographs, little potted plants, handmade decorations, and warm colors that made every guest feel welcome before they even sat down. People often told us we looked like the kind of couple that would grow old together. I believed them. The only people who never accepted me were Mireya's parents. To them, I was never successful enough. They wanted someone with inherited wealth, a polished family name, and connections that could benefit theirs. I was simply a contractor who rebuilt old homes and repaired things other people threw away. They saw dignity as something measured by bank accounts. I measured it by honesty. For years Mireya stood beside me despite their criticism. Or at least I thought she did. Everything changed after her father suffered a mild heart attack. His condition became the perfect excuse for her entire family to tighten their grip around her life. They called constantly. They demanded she spend more weekends at their house. They reminded her of obligations, expectations, traditions, and guilt until those words became chains she could no longer see. I noticed her smile disappearing long before I noticed the distance growing between us. She became quieter. More distracted. Sometimes I caught her staring out the kitchen window for several minutes without realizing I had asked her a question. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, she forced a smile and insisted everything was fine. It wasn't. That afternoon looked almost peaceful from outside. The sunlight was bright. Birds chirped beyond the windows. Coffee still sat warm inside 2 mugs on the wooden table. Yet inside our living room, the world was quietly falling apart. She folded another shirt into the suitcase while refusing to look directly at me. I stood frozen, holding the blanket we had shared during countless movie nights. Every object in that room reminded me of us. The couch where we planned our future. The keys on the table beside the coffee mug. The family photographs surrounding us like silent witnesses. Finally, she whispered the truth. Her family had given her an impossible choice. Either she left me willingly, or they would completely cut her off forever. Not only financially. Emotionally. Completely. They had threatened never to speak to her again. Never allow her younger siblings near her. Never welcome her home. Never acknowledge our future children. They promised she would become invisible. I searched her face for anger. There wasn't any. Only exhaustion. The kind that comes after fighting the same battle every single day until your strength disappears. She told me she loved me. She insisted none of this was my fault. She said she hoped one day I would forgive her. Then she zipped the suitcase closed. Watching her carry it toward the front door felt like watching someone slowly remove every heartbeat from the house itself. I never chased after her. Not because I wanted her to leave. Because love should never become another prison. If she truly believed leaving was the only path left to her, then forcing her to stay would only prove her family right. The front door closed softly behind her. The silence afterward felt louder than any argument. For the next 3 weeks, I existed rather than lived. The house stayed clean because I had nothing else to do. Her favorite coffee mug remained exactly where she left it. Every morning sunlight entered through those same windows, reminding me that the world continued moving while mine had stopped. Friends encouraged me to move on. Some insisted she had chosen her family over me. Others claimed she had simply invented an excuse. I wanted to hate her. It would have been easier. Hatred closes wounds faster than unanswered love. But every time I remembered the tears in her eyes, something refused to let bitterness replace hope. Exactly 21 days later, I was repainting the front porch when a familiar car stopped across the street. I barely looked up. Then I recognized her. Mireya stepped out wearing simple clothes, her hair hurriedly tied back exactly the way she always did while cleaning the house. She wasn't carrying luggage. She wasn't smiling. She looked terrified. Before I could speak, another luxury SUV pulled up behind her. Several people climbed out. Her parents. Her older brother. Her aunt. Even from across the yard, I could hear raised voices. They surrounded her before she reached my front steps. Neighbors quietly peeked through curtains. The peaceful afternoon transformed into an uncomfortable public confrontation. Her father pointed toward their vehicle while demanding she come back immediately. Her mother cried dramatically about family honor. Her brother accused her of embarrassing everyone. I stood completely still. This wasn't my fight. Unless she chose otherwise. Then something happened that none of us expected. Mireya walked away from all of them. Not toward their car. Toward me. Every step seemed heavier than the last. She reached the porch, stopped directly in front of me, and looked into my eyes with more certainty than I had seen in years. Then she quietly admitted the truth she had only recently discovered. Leaving me hadn't brought peace. It had only revealed how deeply her family controlled every part of her life. The promises they made were lies. Nothing she sacrificed had ever been enough. The demands never stopped. First it was leaving her husband. Next it was accepting an arranged engagement with a wealthy businessman she barely knew. After that came instructions about where she should live, what work she should accept, even how she should dress. Walking away from me had never been their final condition. It had only been the beginning. For the first time in her life, she said no. Her father shouted that she was making the biggest mistake of her life. She calmly answered that the biggest mistake had already happened 3 weeks earlier when she abandoned the only person who had truly loved her without conditions. The street fell silent. Nobody expected the quiet woman who had spent years avoiding confrontation to suddenly find such courage. Her mother begged. Her brother threatened. Relatives argued. Mireya never looked back. She simply stood beside me. Not behind me. Beside me. There was an important difference. She wasn't asking me to rescue her. She had rescued herself. I finally spoke. Not to her family. To her. I asked only one question. Was she returning because she had nowhere else to go, or because this was where her heart had always wanted to stay? Without hesitation, she answered with tears already streaming down her face. Home had never been a building. Home had always been the person waiting inside it. For several long moments I couldn't speak. Every painful day. Every lonely breakfast. Every sleepless night. Every unanswered question. They all collided inside my chest at once. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. Forgiveness is deciding that the future deserves more attention than the past. I reached for her hand. She squeezed mine with trembling fingers. Behind us, her family realized they had finally lost control. Not because I defeated them. Because fear no longer ruled her decisions. They left one by one, still convinced they were right. The street slowly returned to normal. Neighbors closed their curtains. Cars drove past. Children laughed somewhere nearby. Life quietly continued. Inside the house, almost nothing had changed. Her coffee mug still rested beside mine. The photographs still covered every wall. The sunlight still filled every corner. Only now, the silence felt different. Peaceful instead of empty. Over the following months, rebuilding trust proved harder than rebuilding any house I had ever worked on. Some mornings she woke crying from nightmares. Sometimes guilt overwhelmed her. Sometimes my own fears resurfaced. Healing wasn't instant. It was patient. Brick by brick. Conversation by conversation. Choice by choice. She found work without relying on her family's influence. I expanded my renovation business. Together we attended counseling, not because our marriage had failed forever, but because we believed love deserved professional help when wounds ran deep. Nearly a year later, we hosted our first neighborhood barbecue. The same neighbors who had witnessed our public heartbreak now watched us laugh together beneath bright afternoon sunshine. Several noticed one brand new photograph hanging near the front door. It wasn't from our wedding. It wasn't from a vacation. It was taken on the afternoon she returned. The picture showed nothing extraordinary. Just two ordinary people standing on a front porch, holding hands, looking exhausted but hopeful. For us, it represented something far greater than perfection. It represented freedom. Years later, whenever people asked how our marriage survived such impossible circumstances, we never blamed her family completely. Pressure can influence people. Fear can control people. But love becomes strongest when someone finally chooses it freely instead of obediently. Mireya often said that leaving me broke her heart. Returning taught her how strong it truly was. Our story never became famous. No newspaper wrote about it. No television cameras arrived. It remained exactly what it always had been. Two imperfect people learning that real love is not measured by how rarely people fall. It is measured by whether they have the courage to stand together again after life knocks them down. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that forgiveness can sometimes rebuild what pride destroys, please like this video, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support keeps these meaningful stories alive. Special request, comment below, real love stands beside you, not above you. As the evening light never arrived because this beautiful chapter belonged entirely to one unforgettable day, we stood together once more inside the same warm home where everything had nearly ended. The suitcase was gone, but the lesson remained forever. Sometimes the hardest journey is not walking away. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can ever do is turn around, come home, and refuse to walk away again.